And greetings. We are back in the saddle again. Good to be back here on BlazeTV. I am Steve Deace with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. Did you guys have a good extended weekend as well?
It was excellent. Yes.
Was it?
It was good.
Oh, good. Yeah, back from Houston. Spent about a day and a half there. Speaking at a benefit for Texas Values, which is kind of like their version of our family leader down there in Texas. And had a great time. Phenomenal people. Thickest air I've ever breathed in my life. I think it got more humid after it rained. Okay, but the people down there were phenomenal. We went to, and you guys know I don't like to eat a ton when I'm traveling. So we did a little of just a dinner because I had like 6 hours after the event before my plane took off. And they took us to this local place over by the airport where everything's done there locally and it's all whole food. So I thought I'd give it a shot. But just figured it's grilled meat, least amount of processing. The grilled, just had a couple fat pieces of grilled shrimp, couple of slices of grilled chicken. I mean, the amount of flavor and zest was just absolutely phenomenal. So I got a chance to see Brian English, one of my best buds, and a lot of positive words and support for the show down there as well to pass along to you guys.
Yeah,
so
excellent.
Got a chance to go see Ted Cruz, for a couple of hours. That was a private conversation between two friends. So it could be a little bit more blunt than just your typical media senator conversation. I won't get into too many specifics. I'll mention one thing, though, that I think everybody will find funny, is, of course, we got into the conversation of whether we thought Trump was going to run again or not, because that, of course, unlocks the answer to a lot of other then questions that either don't have to be asked or then have to be answered, right, depending on that decision, right? And Ted said, I just had dinner with him a month or so ago, and he asked me, so what are you going to do next? And Ted said, kind of depends on what you're going to do next. So I thought, and he didn't get an answer from Trump, but I thought that was funny. So, but it's good. It's good to be back here with all of you here on BlazeTV. Let us know what you think about what we think. Steve@stevedeace.com is how you can email the program. That's DEACE. You can like us on Facebook, MeWe, Parler, and Gab. Follow me on Twitter @Steve Deace Show. And then, of course, if you're looking for clips of the show, head over to rumble.com/Steve Deace Show as well. You know what? One thing I was told about the banquet I spoke at yesterday is I won't mention who said this, but someone told me yesterday that a mucky muck, and that's a term of endearment around here, but a mucky muck with the Texas Republican Party came up to them afterwards, after I got done being the keynote for this banquet, and said, "Wow, we got to get that guy to keynote the state GOP convention down here next June." And then the person who told me this looked at me and laughed and said, "But don't worry, Abbott wins that primary. He'll make sure that you'll never get that invite." I thought that was so funny.
The governor of Texas.
I just laughed out loud. I mean, last week I was told by an activist I'm doing a GOP event in Iowa next week, and you guys got to remind me. I had a couple of really good friends of mine, like Jason Johnson, who lives in the Houston area, text me yesterday, 10 minutes before my event was to start. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming down here?" You guys know I'm terrible about that. You guys need to remind me to more often remember when we're doing stuff like that.
Just a social butterfly,
yes,
Dave Deace.
Yeah, I just randomly show up in places without any warning. But I'm going to do a state GOP event, and I'll have the details for that, because it's kind of like halfway between here and Minnesota. So if you are in either Iowa or Minnesota and you want to come, this would be kind of a good event for you. It's the first time I have been asked to do an official state Republican Party event in Iowa since at least the Cruz campaign. It's at least, so we're talking at least now more than 5.5 years. That's how long it has been. And an activist sent me an email and said, "Hey, the rumor going around is that Senator Grassley, when he found out you were the keynote, said he wasn't come to the event. And I wrote back, please be true. Okay, please. I think people don't understand. See, this is the stuff that feeds my ego. We don't know our podcast rankings and stuff. The reason we know what our show grew last year is because the Mucky Mucks here at the Blaze just volunteered the information. We're not how many times do we sit around here and talk about that kind of stuff?
Not often.
Not often. It's rarely a conversation that we have, which is probably not why we're richer. I think you're supposed to inverse these things. But the idea that me showing up, swinging a big truth stick intimidates these people with these lofty titles of governor and senator. Now that, folks, I couldn't tell you right now, nor do I care what my current podcast rank is or what rank we are of shows watched on BlazeTV. All I know is everybody's behind Glenn Beck and Mark Levin. That's all I know. Who's third or ninth, I couldn't tell you. All right. But when I find out stuff like this guy who's a governor or this guy who's a senator or this guy who's a presidential candidate doesn't want to come anywhere near you, that's when I get to the masculine ego helmet sticker. I love stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I live in your head all the time. I'll
yes.
accept that.
Yeah. That's the greatest compliment. One of the greatest compliments, along with I hate your show, but I watch or listen every day. Those are two of the greatest compliments that you can get in this line of work. At least if you're me, it is anyway. Hey, coming up on the show today, we have a jam-packed show for you today. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to reveal something we have been dealing with on this program behind the scenes for about a month and a half that we think as a consumer of conservative media, you should be aware of. And then you can draw your own conclusions about that coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Well, you know what? I didn't ask you guys before I said we were going to bring this up on the show. It came up casually in the overtime about a week ago, but we haven't brought it up to the general public yet. I didn't even ask you guys before I said we're going to do this. You think it's okay? I don't want it to be overly self-serving. It can be kind of self-serving, but I don't want it to be overly self-serving. Do you think people would be interested to know what I'm about to tell them here at the bottom of the hour?
Yeah, I'm certain of it.
Okay, all right. Next hour, I know you're going to be I'm certain you're going to want to know this. Dr. Ryan Cole is one of the leading independent pathologists in the country. He's been on our show before. He's going to join us again. Now, we had this already set up before the whole thing with vaccinating the youth with the COVID vaccines has now kind of come to a head. This morning, the World Health Organization, I'm sure this is going to be in your montage here in a minute, Aaron. The World Health Organization this morning is now suggesting that you do not any longer vaccinate anybody under the age of 18 with the COVID vaccines anywhere in the world. But don't worry, our CDC will get on it with their emergency meeting that we've been waiting more than a week for, because they first scheduled it on Juneteenth, a week after the emergency was declared, and then they had to celebrate Juneteenth, so they might get around to it here maybe later today. Who knows if we are lucky. So this is a conversation. What are mRNA vaccines? How do they differ from traditional vaccines? And as a pathologist, he is studying both the behavior of the virus and then how the virus behaves in relationship to attempts to treat it or kill it, right?
Yeah.
We want to know these kinds of questions or the answers to these kinds of questions. We're going to get them with Dr. Ryan Cole next hour. And then next hour for Pop Culture Tuesday, the absolute most cringe program I have ever watched. This was in our queue. This came up on a list of must-see documentaries in the last 5 years on a YouTube channel I like. I put it in our queue. I asked Amy the other night, my wife, hey, should we watch this? She goes, I've already seen it. I think, though, that you'll like it, and I just want to get your reaction to it. And then when it was over, she was like, I wish I would have filmed your reaction to this. I mean, I got up out of my chair. I flailed my arms. I mean, it was like the end of a Michigan-Ohio State football game when they used to be competitive. So that was a long time ago. But I mean, this was the most cringe program I have ever watched. So of course, I demanded that Todd and Aaron watch it too.
I will never forgive you for making me do that. It was
Todd, you texted me yesterday, like 5 minutes before I'm about to go speak. This makes Sons of Sam look like Scooby-Doo.
It does.
And I had to walk out of the room and get my composure to get my mind back on giving the talk I was sent down there to give.
I've been transformed and not in a positive way.
It is the most cringe thing I've seen in my life. It is the most cringe show ever.
And over again. It does not stop. I watched it in two. I had to stop. And
Yeah,
it's
just
only
turn
an
it
hour
off.
and a half long.
Yes.
I had to take a time out.
I was tempted, but then I was like, I got to get to the end of this. I got to see how this thing ends. But there were like 4 times I almost got a TO, baby. I had to eject
I
from
thought
this
maybe
thing.
you were trolling me and that these were all actors and this was some sort of psychological experiment.
It would have given us more hope for humanity.
Yes, it would have.
That is for sure. So we will get into this in Pop Culture Tuesday because not only is it ultimate cringe, but there is a principle that lies at the heart of the cringiest tale ever told. And we'll get into that coming up in Pop Culture Tuesday. You know, I forgot to take with me on my trip the blue light. That's what they're called, right?
Blue blockers.
Blue blockers, thank you. The blue blockers from Better Spectacles that I'm wearing now. And it's just amazing. I've been wearing these for the last couple of weeks when working here in the office or at my home office in front of screens. Just the difference it has made. And then I forgot to take it with me down to Houston. And so I'm using just my standard glasses. And man, I can feel a difference. I mean, wow, a big difference. So whether though it's the blue blockers or I even have, just my normal prescription from Better Spectacles as well. If you want blue blockers or if you've got any form of prescription, could be just a standard correction, could be like me, because you know me, it's got to be somewhat contrarian. So I'm not farsighted, I'm not nearsighted, I'm a little bit of both. I couldn't just be one. I refuse false binary arguments. I refuse to be near or farsighted. I will be a little bit of both. All right. Whichever prescription you're dealing with Better Spectacles, you can go there right now. BetterSpectacles.com/Steve. Schedule a teleoptical appointment. Ask them about their German-engineered Rodenstock eyewear. It's available now for the first time in the U.S. That's a 144-year-old company, industry leader worldwide. And Ronald Reagan himself wore these glasses. It's what I'm wearing right now here on the show. If you want to get more information about that or just help with your own prescription, they'll give you access to the best opticians on planet Earth right now. When you go to betterspectacles.com/Steve, that's betterspectacles.com/Steve, and they're offering you, by the way, 61% off those Go Spec lenses with the free handcrafted Rodenstock frames as an introductory offer to get you started. 61% off there at betterspectacles.com/Steve. And now here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away. So we got a new partner on the show. It's an interesting product, man. It's called Fast Growing Trees. Maybe you've upgraded a few things around the house while you were stuck inside, but we all want to get back outside again, right? And now you can upgrade your yard with some new stuff to help with your landscaping. Skip those big box stores. Head to fastgrowingtrees.com. FastGrowingTrees.com. It's the world's largest online nursery. You don't have to wait in line or a lackluster selection. You can dig through thousands of varieties of trees, shrubs, plants, bushes, everything you want to do to help you curate and improve the curb appeal of your home, of your yard, your landscaping. All right, so whether you're looking for more shade, privacy, might even be looking for fruit trees. We have an apple tree in our backyard. Last year was the first time, because 2020 had to ruin everything. Last year was the first time that the apple crop sucked, of course. All right, but most years we've had a ton of fun picking the apples off the tree every year, especially when the kids were little. All right, so every plant is shipped with a well-developed root system. It's just ready to explode with new growth in your yard. And now through July 31st, if you go to fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve, you'll get 15% off. That's fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve. Plus, by the way, they come with a 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, meaning whatever you order will arrive happy, healthy, and ready for planting. Fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve. That's fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve. So we've had a mini ordeal going on here on the show behind the scenes for, wow. Aaron, when did you cut the video? When did we finish the video that we're about to show? Do you remember when it was?
Let me see.
When you sent the email
the
with the completed video.
It would have been the 2nd of June.
2nd of June. So today's the 22nd.
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks. So 3 weeks we've had this ordeal going on behind the scenes, and we've tried to let it go as long as we could because it's a bit of a sensitive subject, understandably, given who we're about to talk about. And and you want to give people the most benefit of the doubt, right?
Sure.
But after telling us they were going to put a rush on this and then saying, well, we've got a few legal questions, and then they give us one legal question and we answer it, we've now been officially ghosted. We have heard nothing, okay? For at least a week now, we haven't heard anything, right? It's been at least a week. Now we can't even get them to respond on any level. So before we go any further, let's just let you watch this video. Remember when Anthony Fauci undermined President Trump from telling the truth about the real potential origins of COVID-19? Well, what else hasn't Fauci been completely honest about? Find out for yourself. I'm Steve Deace, co-author of the #1 best-selling book, Fauci and Bargain, the most powerful and dangerous bureaucrat in American history. Get your copy of the book that exposes Fauci, and let's make sure this never happens to our beloved country again. Endorsed by Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, and Rand Paul. Get your copy today at FauciandBargainBook.com. So you may have seen this ad running on BlazeTV for the last few days. You may see that ad running in other places in the coming days and weeks. It was originally cut for Fox News Channel. And our publisher, Post Hill Press, saw the reaction we got from being on Tucker Carlson's show for 5 minutes when he brought us on for having the #1 book. And then it went right back to #1 for several days thereafter, like a week after being back on with him again, and thought, you know, it's a little bit like anything else. We've kind of run into dry timber with the book. We are going to end up eclipsing 100,000 copies of this book sold in all three, when you combine the three forms of audio, the ebook, and the print product. So there won't be many conservative books this year that will do that. Well, there won't be many books, period, this year that will do that, but nonfiction especially. But there might be, my publisher tells us, who's worked in this industry for decades, maybe 5, conservative books this year will do a number like that. So that's you guys, man. I mean, how many of you bought 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 copies that we talked about when the book came out in March and April, right? But the publisher decided, let's see if we can reach another layer of people now that we've really got COVID stand on the run. And thought, you know, who does a show with an audience a lot like yours, but just a lot bigger? Who's a natural fit for that? Tucker Carlson's show is, right? Yeah. I mean, after all, we were already on. So arrangements and everything were made the ad time was already agreed to. The rate was already agreed to. It would be in the thousands of dollars per spot. And that the hope was to actually run this as a promotion leading into Father's Day, which of course we just had, and you didn't see the ad on Tucker Carlson, so now you know how it went. And everything was gung-ho, ready to go, ready to cut a check. Publisher's even going to pay for the entire ad schedule up front. And we get this all done. Aaron, you and I come up with the concept for the ad. Mm-hmm. You produce it. I voice it. We put this thing to get it turned around and done, and on top of everything else we do in 24, 36 hours?
It was less than 36 hours.
Okay. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, we hear nothing. And a day or two goes by, and we were told this is going to roll right away from the ad rep we talked to over there at Fox. And then they came back and said, well, this doesn't happen very often, but the ad has to go through legal for approval. And I said to the publisher right away, my name's not James Spader, but have you ever heard of the blacklist? And he thought, oh, come on, it can't be that. I'm like, okay, let's see how this turns out. So behind the scenes, I was keeping you guys updated on this every step of the way. The minute this went to legal, what did I tell you guys this was? This was the blacklist.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm clearly blacklisted over there, which, by the way, if I earned it, and I probably did, I'm okay with it. I'm a big boy. But name someone in all of conservative media who has a platform about the size of ours, or even a little larger, who has been on a primetime weekday show on Fox News less than I have been for like the last 10 years, right?
Right.
I mean, the Cruz campaign couldn't get me booked on Fox as a surrogate, so they had to put me on other networks, other places. It's clear that I'm on a blacklist over there. So finally, we get legal to respond to us, and I'm thinking they found one or two footnotes that aren't applicable or disappeared from the internet that we have to clarify, right? Something substantive in the book that they're not comfortable, the extent that by which it nails Fauci's jello to the door, right? That they're going to ask us to clarify or why, or come up with an excuse for why they can't run it because of this. The one legal clarification Fox News Channel comes back to us with is they wanted us to verify that it was a #1 best-selling book. It wasn't even any of the claims that the book makes. It was the claim of its sales status, which is very easy to confirm. I mean, you just go find the list published by Amazon and the Wall Street Journal and USA Today, and you send them that documentation, right?
Right.
So our sales rep over at Fox gets back to us again. Okay, that's perfect. This should be done in a day. That was probably 16 or 17 days ago. Mm-hmm. We were doing daily check-ins for another, 10 days. Well, I don't know what's taking so long. Should be any day. Then we just stopped getting responses. So in the last few days, so we have just stopped checking in. They've made no further inquiries about what the issue is. Now, the day that I was on Tucker's show, entire spot breaks were bought out by Mike Lindell in order to promote his book. That was actually one of the reasons we got the idea for this. Because, one, it's working for his book. Two, who right now is even more controversial in how they have chosen to attack the spirit of the age than even this program is. That isn't sitting in an indefinite detention cell from January 6th, right? Is there one it's probably him,
yes.
Right? And so we kind of thought, well, if they're going to run Lindell's stuff,
yeah.
When the spirit of the age throws a Geiger counter out there, it goes off when we walk in the room. It's red lines when Lindell walks in a room, right? I mean, he's getting kicked out of Republican Governors Association meetings and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now apparently we have surpassed Mike. I'm going to receive that, I guess, as a form of a compliment, but we have gotten no further asks for clarification. Nothing. I mean, we had a check for a not insignificant amount of money ready to send to them, and it was pretty significant to them because they were in agreement of receiving it, right? So I'm guessing that we have just been ghosted. Now you may know why. I knew for a week, or almost a week, I was going to be on Tucker. All three of us did, about the book. It was already being worked on before the book came out. We just never said a word. The day that we knew we were going to be on that night, we didn't mention it once on the show. I didn't mention it at all until I was sitting in the chair with the Sadump Lake and the show started live. That's when I tweeted out, hey, going to be on Tucker Carlson, the #1 show in cable television here in about 45 minutes. Because I didn't trust that if the word got out ahead of time, they wouldn't find some way to yank it, right?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that kind of what maybe happened here? And what does it mean other than it's just inside baseball for us? Is there something that a listener or viewer to this show should take away from the last 17 days?
It's way worse.
You think so?
Yes.
Because I have been hesitant about, is this too self-serving to talk about? Is there something beyond that it's just our show and you like it, that the average conservative or patriot or liberty-minded critical thinker in this audience could take from this experience?
Can I buy that your personality could rub people the wrong way?
It happens.
Accepted.
Nobody's perfect.
Accepted.
Yeah. You agreed to that a little too soon, but I'll allow it.
I know mine can too. I'm in. This is why I understand it. But listen, this wasn't just any old book during any old year. We were the tip of the spear from a media perspective on COVID and calling BS on it. No one can challenge that. And they can try, and they will, but they'll be wrong. We were as early as anybody in the media sphere. There were others, and God bless them for it, and we pointed them out because we knew it couldn't just be us. And some of that is because of this nonsense. So the show as a whole, and then the book came out. It didn't seek to simply ride a wave. It again set a trend. We came out with this book, and then you saw after the book came out, many people suddenly finding their guts on this topic and mentioning Fauci and throwing him under the bus for the very first time in conservative circles. And this isn't just about any old issue. It's about COVID and what happened for the last year and a half to hijack this nation in ways constitutional, in ways life and death. That's why this is way worse than Steve Deace. This is about you can't handle the truth. And you don't want the truth on some level. You want the return to normal, the grift as it was, and you know this guy who never allowed you to have the grift on any of those old issues that you may have not had him on one about is sure as hell not going to let you have it on this one, and neither am I. You should all be ashamed of yourselves.
So there was an attempt made a couple of years ago, I believe, Steve, and I can't remember who initiated it, to figure out if we can get you on Fox News more often. You were on a 2 or 3 appearances on some Sunday show with our
a weekend afternoon show.
And there was an individual specifically hired. And this individual said, yeah, sure, I've got tons of contacts over at Fox News. And if I'm getting any part of this story wrong, please correct me.
On Kearns was her name.
Yes, thank you.
I think she's on
much.
Newsmax now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an effort made by this individual to get you on. And it was kind of an eerily similar pattern, was it not? Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'm endeavoring now.
Yeah.
And then just radio silence.
Yes. Yeah.
There is an Overton window on the right as well. And it's really, really... guys, it's not a whole lot different than what we see on lefty enemy media. It really isn't. It's got a different spin on it, but the premise of every issue that's talked about, unless you're making bank for Fox News like Tucker Carlson is, but if that's like the only exception, maybe Steve Hilton might be another exception on Fox News. Unless you're absolutely making bank, you're not allowed to go outside that Overton window. Steve, and really when we're talking about Steve, in certain ways, we're talking about you, people like you and I, and those out there who watch this show and appreciate this type of content, I should say. We're talking embodiments of something that is outside the acceptable Overton window on this outlet. And this is not, we're not talking about Newsmax here. This is still the largest outlet that caters, that target audience that is real right of center, what's left of America. And there is still an Overton window there. That should tell you what you need to know. I think a lot of people have come to this conclusion that outside of 1 hour every weeknight, Fox News is not really your friend. Now, I'm still going to reserve judgment, but outside of that 1 hour, what is it doing for you? What's it doing for us? That's a question that we have to keep asking.
We're going to ask some more questions. Fake news or not is next. We're going to put the COVID vaccines under the literal microscope with pathologist Dr. Ryan Cole next. You do not want to miss this conversation here in a moment. Back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Steve@stevedeace.com is how you can email us. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter @Steve Deace Show. You can look for me, Steve Deace, as well, on MeWe, Parler, and Gab. And if you're looking for clips of the show, you can go to rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. That's DEACE. And if you're a podcast listener, we're looking for you to please, if you haven't done these things already, leave us a 5-star review. Give us as well a subscription. Hit that subscribe button. The more of you to do that, the more it helps the program to grow. Thousands upon thousands of you have done that for us already. We want to thank each and every one of you for your contribution into helping the show to continue to grow and succeed. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends at Home Title Lock. You know, we've been warning you about home title theft for a while now. This is where cyber thieves remove you from your home's title and become the new owner. And they do this because they can hack online, where a lot of homes titles are kept these days, and identify as you, especially if they have personal information that you would use to identify yourself online. You know, like say what might be on your Facebook page. And they just recently suffered a massive data breach. 500 million accounts now vulnerable to cyber thieves. So they can go online, potentially, log in to your home's a website where the title is kept as you, make it look like you sold your home to them on a quick claim deed, and then maybe you don't find out about it until your home's equity is all gone. Make sure it doesn't happen to you. And that's what our friends at Home Title Lock can do. That's all they do. And if you want to find out if you're already a victim, or you want to take advantage of their 30 free days of protection during this high-risk breach, you can go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. And to get those 30 free days, use the promo code RADIO. Promo code RADIO at HomeTitleLock.com. Dr. Ryan Cole has worked as an independent pathologist for nearly 20 years. His work within those 18 years includes 5 years at the prestigious Mayo Clinic. He's been a guest on this show before, and it's a pleasure to bring him back here again today. Dr. Cole, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us again, brother. How are you?
Super duper. Thanks for having me back, Steve.
Can you explain to our audience, Ryan, what you know, you just heard from Dr. Ryan Cole, MD pathologist, talking about, hey, effective supplements can be good preemptive preventative measures, so that we're doing actually healthcare around here and not sick care. That's one of the reasons why we talk about Omega XL on our show. So many people struggling with inflammation. That's not an injury, like Todd is still getting over the yank in your back from a couple of weeks ago, right? That requires, some rehab, rest, right? That's an injury, okay? But inflammation is the chronic variety. That soreness, that achiness, a lot of times can be in your back. When you don't yank something, it's just as sore anyway. Shoulders, knees, hips, the stuff that's of a chronic variety, it's almost always caused by too much inflammation in the body. And that's where you're looking for an all-natural anti-inflammatory like Omega XL, backed by 35 years of clinical research. It attacks the inflammation that's been attacking you, thus causing the pain. And if you want to give it a shot, I use this product each and every day. Just got back from Houston. I take it with me when I travel. All right. So not a day goes by I don't use Omega XL. If you want to try it too, see if it works for you, Go to omegaxl.com/Steve. Buy one bottle. Get the second one for free right now at omegaxl.com/Steve or call 800-844-4888. That's 800-844-4888. You ready?
You know, during the break, you informed me of an article about my Badger men's basketball team perhaps going under total implosion, and I'd rather talk about that. Please, let's talk about my team dying.
That's how bad it is?
That is how bad it is.
I would always rather talk about it.
I was going to say, Aaron wants to talk about that too.
Aaron's in.
What I didn't mention is, you know what precipitated? So there's this article where they recorded their coach secretly in a gripe session. It was the fact the team was so despondent by getting blown out at home by Iowa. That it says in the article, they were so depressed, Aaron. We're losing to Iowa at home now? Losing to Iowa at home was the breaking point.
Yeah. He doesn't understand. Aaron's so happy. He doesn't care that you were ripping on him.
Yeah, it kind of went the other way. Wisconsin players are like, dude, something's seriously wrong. We just got housed by Iowa in our own crib. Somebody do something, all right?
And then they lost 2 more times.
There you go. So, there is a dearth of content right now as we welcome you back here on the program, and it's Pop Culture Tuesday when we look at the intersection between pop culture and conservatism. We keep launching, like it's been 10 minutes, a new streaming service has launched, but man, there's a dearth of content out there right now. Now the lull of everything that was shut down for productions, or all the productions were shut down for lockdowns. We're in that lull now. I mean, we have a thing at our house where one of us, usually me, each Tuesday on the new release day on the streaming services, we'll go through and see, is there anything new, and flag it either that Amy and I watch, or we'll do it for a family movie night later. Man, I've not been flagging a lot of stuff the last, month plus. I mean, it's drying up out there for new content. And so I'm finding lists on What Culture or Watch Mojo or Looper. These are really popular YouTube channels. And one of them I came across was, best documentaries of the 2010s. And this one, I've been making my way up the list. And this one, I finally got to number 1 on this particular site's list. And it was a documentary called Abducted in Plain Sight from 2017. And I said to Amy, hey, I want to make it we made it to the end of the list. You want to watch this one? She's like, oh yeah, but I want you to know I've already seen it. I'm like, why do you want to watch it again? I mean, it's a documentary, right? It's not like you're going to relive the moment on your left. It's all clear, kid. Let's blow this thing and go home. It's a documentary. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. These aren't moments you want to often relive in. They don't make documentaries about things are going great. The documentary, right? It's not typically what they make Here are some healthy whole families. Watch them for 90 minutes, right? No, we don't make documentaries about good stuff. So you typically don't want to rewatch them again. They don't have a lot of repeat viewing potential. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, why do you want to watch this again? And she's like, oh, I got to get your reaction to this. So I began watching. And I almost turned it off. And she's like, oh no, it's going to get worse. I'm like, you want me to, I was about to turn it off, right? And you're telling me, you got to sit through it. I'm about to do it again. Eject. Oh, it gets worse. And the third time she says this, I'm like, how does it get worse than this? And then you find out how it can get worse and worse and worse. It is the most cringe program I have ever watched. It had me out of my chair, flailing arms, I just nodding my head.
I was like Cage in 8mm, just
yeah. I'm like the comedian Tracy Morgan, just no. Okay, I am scarred. I know I now have long-lasting T-cell immunity to COVID-19. I have no immunity to what psychologically this documentary did to me. The story of this documentary is about a nice, quaint LDS Utah family in the 1970s who, are doing the love your neighbor as you love yourself thing when a new couple moves in next door, right? And they just decide to, get to know them. And the husband on the other side seems really eager to get to know them, even more eager to get to know them too, right? And I don't even know how much to tell you. In this case, I'm tempted, folks, to spoil it so that you do not watch this. You don't watch this, okay? The guy's a predator, and his goal is to seduce their blossoming, flowering teenage daughter who's 12 or 13 when he first moves in, I think it is, right?
Oh, she's younger than that.
Even younger than that. All right, so he's grooming her then.
Yeah.
Okay. To be a future bride for him.
Lolita.
Yeah, good analogy. And he even convinces her that, he rigs up like voice modulating technology from the 70s on a tape recorder to make her convinced that aliens are going to destroy humanity and the two of them have to repopulate the earth. And if anybody knows about this, then they'll come and kill her family. And it's just, this stuff is nuts. And the whole time, the family is interacting with this guy. And when I say they are interacting with this guy, they are interacting.
Bow, chicka, bow, bow.
The mom has a multi-year affair with this guy that the father knows about. And in maybe the most cringe moment, I don't even think I can say this.
Well, while you recover, she had an affair for a second time with this guy.
Yes.
After this guy took her daughter without asking.
That's a detail of importance. That probably should be noted. Yes, the affair with him before he kidnapped her daughter and took her across state lines was bad enough.
Yes.
But then she chose to tap that head a second time. Basically, she went back with a red cup for another round. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that bad?
It's
Pretty
all
bad.
bad.
The whole thing.
That's implied.
I thought I'd never watch anything more cringe than The Wonderful Whites of West Virginia, ever. And you may need to watch that now. Go find that one just to scrub your brain and feel better about yourself, okay? All right. I think there's 7 teeth in the entire documentary. 7. I used to count how many teeth were actually shown in The Wonderful Whites of West Virginia documentary. But this is far more cringe because you're watching a generational train wreck in real time. You're watching a hick dad who figured out in the FDR era that he didn't have to work if he just claimed some form of disability and welfare and just passed that on to his kids. And so they just kept passing on this dysfunction to remain transgenerational wards of the state. And so this dysfunction just keeps procreating, right? Okay. That is cringe enough, right? This family, though, this is the quintessential, at least from the outside, nuclear American family, right? That's what makes this difficult, is throughout the course of this, they know better. And they acknowledge that they know better. They acknowledge they should have known better. And then they just kept doing this anyway. And in the ultimate cringe of the cringe, the dad tells a story about how he was in a car ride with this guy who was having an affair with his wife. And he knew about it. And they were still friends. And he starts then telling him the reason I'm tapping on your wife, dude, is because my wife doesn't like sex, right?
I think did he know about the affair?
Yeah,
at that
he
point?
did. I think he did know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even then.
Okay.
It is a lot to keep straight.
Yeah. There's a lot going on here, folks. A lot. Okay. And, my wife is giving up on sex and I really just need a release. And he says to him, the husband, the predator says to the husband, would you give me a release? And they pull over in a park or something. And dad, I guess we'll just say, gives him a release.
The WTF mullet guy gif is not enough. It doesn't approach enough on this show. I cursed you in that moment, Steve. I said, what? WTF, Steve Deace.
This predator had sex with almost this entire family. And the mom and the dad voluntarily. And what was Sunday? Do you guys remember what Sunday was?
Non-gender specific Guardian number 2 day.
Future New Zealand deadlifting Olympic champion day.
Yeah.
Yes. Sunday was Father's Day. The first go around with this, like one of the FBI agent at the time who investigated the case, the first go around, he's like really sympathetic with the family, right? Okay. And they finally, the first time he takes the daughter, they recover the daughter, they find her, and he's really sympathetic with how this predator wormed his way into the family and everything else, right? But then it turns. This is the moment this whole documentary turns from tragic to cringe. Is when the predator is in jail awaiting sentencing, and his wife at the time goes to their home and blackmails them. And says, if you don't go into that sentencing hearing and say, our daughter wasn't kidnapped and she was okay, it's all a misunderstanding, then he is going to let everybody know that your husband's a homosexual and performed a sex act on him. And the dad was so ashamed at what had happened that he went along with that, which ended up that decision. And this is now where the FBI agent's opinion, the rest of the film, veers, where he basically is just whipping this family for like the second 45 minutes of this documentary, okay? Because in order to hide his own shame, this dad ended up subjecting his family to another decade almost of this, including his oldest daughter. And that to me is why we needed to discuss this. Because that's the whole gist of this story, is that the man of the house will not own up to his mistake, is not willing to face accountability for it or to accept the consequences for it. And therefore, Christ takes our sins upon himself. This father cast his sins upon his wife and child, made them pay for his mistakes, for his shame. And to me, that's why this is a tale that needed to be told and we needed to discuss. I'll get you guys' take on that here in just a second, before or after I tell everybody about Freedom Project Academy. Parents, listen up. Here's what your kids are being taught in government school. You know what? If you're watching this show, you already know. I don't have to tell you. No such thing as a border, as a boy or as a girl, a baby, a law, a constitution, a Bible. You already know those things. All right. What you need to know then is what's the antidote. Unlike government schools, Freedom Project Academy has perfected live online learning for more than a decade. It's based on Judeo-Christian values and a classical curriculum. What does that mean? It means mastery of subject matter, not indoctrinated propaganda. All right, so that you are taught how to think, not what to think. Our own son Noah attended Freedom Project Academy for a couple of years, so I've seen it up close and personal. Plus, I know the people that founded and run this institution as well, so I can't recommend them any more highly than that. Don't let your kid get dumbed down. Go to freedomforschool.com. Get your child a real education from Freedom Project Academy. You can get a free information packet today at freedomforschool.com. Gentlemen, back to the cringe. The floor is yours.
I just was left all the way through, and I thought maybe we might have a resolution at the end, but no, all the way to the very last. The fact that this family would so willingly come on camera in 2017, all of them, and share this so openly. The sisters of the girl who was abused, all time, like we're terrible victims, we're not that bad. The dad, I mean, he broke down in tears a couple times in his shame, but at the end, he still paints themselves as the victims of a great American tragedy. That speaks to so much of our culture. I did not sense genuine remorse at the end from this family. It was appalling through and through and through. They somehow painted themselves at the end as victims. The only victim was the little girl. Everyone else was a co-conspirator.
Yeah, and just briefly, this is also important to understand. This is the enemy's playbook right here as well. This predator working his way, tying everybody up in this house of cards, web of lies thing, and without the Holy Spirit working within those lives, they can't. They're so ashamed they can't help but continue to sink into that. It's fascinating in an incredibly morbid way.
Cringe, the most cringe of cringe. John 3:17.